household and $150,000 for couples filing jointly.
That means that the benefit will disappear for individuals earning more than $80,000 annually and couples earning more than $160,000, right?
That's right, in terms of the threshold for the direct check.
However,
some households with dependents will get more money in this round. Talk about that.
That's exactly right. If you're a family of four and you're making, under about $100,000.
I said, we have got to start being honest with the public that what's our plan? Medicare is going bankrupt. Social Security is going bankrupt. Here's what the Democrats did. They just cut $280 billion. Every Democrat that's running right now.
We have some shocking news. Millions of people that are on Social Security, and especially Social Security benefits and SSI or SSDI, can actually see a huge and pretty decent benefit increase in their stimulus payments. So everybody, the Social Security Administration announced an 8.7% increase in 2023 benefits. It's all according to experts. So on the surface, it appears to be great, but considering how inflation has actually been eating its purchasing power, it could affect many of you guys, whether we know it or not. These year-over-year benefit changes are designed to protect a senior citizen's purchasing power against inflation. The Social Security Administration compares the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, and all from data from the third quarter of the current year to the third quarter of the previous year to calculate the percentage increase. So while a large increase in benefits may feel like a gift, it only occurs when your purchasing power is eroding at an alarming rate. The latest COLA could have adverse effects on the future of Social Security when the SSA receives more revenue than is needed to pay for the current year's benefits. It places the extra cash into trust funds, then invests in Treasury bonds to increase the program's reserve. In June, the Social Security Administration releases its annual report on the status of the program's trust funds. The report said the program is facing some long-term financing shortfalls. SSA receives more revenue than is needed to pay the current year's benefits. It just placed the extra cash in another trust fund. And if inflation just continues to rise, then Social Security recipients will see their overall purchasing power diminish in the coming year. There is hope, though, in the recent Federal Reserve comments that a good chunk of their inflationary pressure can be attributed to relatively short-term events. If the supply chain challenges derived from these events are resolved in the near future, it's quite possible we could see a dramatic decrease in inflation. It would provide some much-needed relief for Social Security beneficiaries. And according to CNN News, economists are warning that there's a real danger of a recession in the United States. Mortgage rates are at their highest level since 2002. Consumer spending and business investment is falling, and the Federal Reserve is fighting persistent inflation with higher interest rates. But somehow U.S. labor markets have actually stopped the trend. The unemployment rate is 3.5%. That's a decade low. Demand for workers is strong, and there's currently 1.7 job vacancies for every unemployed American. New data will likely show that there were 10 million job openings at the end of the year, and that's about the same as it was last year as well. Labor costs have grown at a rapid clip as employers increase salaries and benefits to attract or retain employees. The U.S. employment costs grew by 1.2% in the third quarter. The job market is good for workers, but it's not good for inflation. The mismatch between demand for hirers and supply of workers is keeping wages elevated and protecting Americans from a slowdown, just as the Fed is working to cool the economy and limit demand. High employment numbers signal to the Fed that they must continue to be aggressive with the rate hike cycle to temper inflation. History shows us that when the Fed tightens, employment drops. The Fed's own projections find unemployment rates should rise to 4.4% by the end of 2023. So the problem is here, and all we can do is wait for President Biden to send out stimulus payments.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank him for his leadership on the very important elements of the rule that will be brought to the floor today. I thank him. I thank all the members of the Rules Committee. I particularly want to acknowledge the leadership of Chairman Jim McGovern for his leadership in bringing so much policy to bear in this one rule as we proceed with the week's legislation. I rise today in what is a momentous week for our House Democratic majority as we carry on our work to defend America's health, security, and freedom.
President Biden, everybody, is now being urged to take executive action this week to help the American people financially. This executive order could be signed this week by the president, but lawmakers have opposed a few changes to it. And the good news is that the General Assembly announced that a bill has been filed to provide $300 in direct payments to Delaware taxpayers to help with the rising cost of gas and other necessities. Under the plan, which has the support of Governor John Carney, a $300 direct payment will go to every resident who filed a 2020 tax. According to lawmakers, this is the first time Delaware has ever done a rebate program. Since the state has an unprecedented $1 billion surplus, lawmakers said they saw a rebate program as the best way to provide quick relief to people in Delaware experiencing any financial strain. The payments will go to anyone who filed a tax return in 2020, which is an estimated 600,000 residents. And there are some residents who did not file a tax return, especially seniors and low-income residents. Language in the bill filed this week says that all adult residents, even those who did not file a 2020 tax return, will receive the $300. The $300 will not be subject to Delaware income taxes. The rebate is for every individual tax filer, regardless of filing married, jointly, or separately. So a married couple would get $600. For months, Delaware lawmakers expected to have a whopping $800 million in extra revenue for this fiscal year. The Delaware Economic and Financial Advisory Council recently projected that there will be an additional $260 million in revenue for this fiscal year, resulting in a surplus of $1 billion. Lawmakers said they expect to vote on the measure next month. It's expected to sail through the General Assembly quickly because it is backed by Democratic and Republican leadership. Representative Valerie Longhurst, the state's House Majority Leader, said the hope for residents to receive the money before June 30th. So this is nice news for Delaware residents. And also, people in Maine can now check the status of their $850 relief payments using a new website from the Maine Revenue Services. The checks, which will be paid for with $730 million from the state surplus, were approved by the Maine legislature this past season as a one-time payment to help with the rising cost of inflation. The Department of Administrative and Financial Services says it mailed initial $5,000 relief checks via the U.S. Postal Service. Those are expected to arrive in mailboxes as early as this week. The department will then issue around 200,000 checks per week after that, with the vast majority of qualifying Mainers who have already filed their 2021 Maine tax return expected to receive their check by mid-July. Eligible Mainers should expect to see their checks arrive this week, and the state says it will be based on when your 2021 tax return was received. And while the tax deadline has passed, it's not too late to file a return. Mainers have until October 31st. The relief payments are also available to retirees and to those who receive Social Security and SSI, so long as they meet the eligibility criteria. With widespread student loan forgiveness has not yet become a reality, some U.S. borrowers have already received some debt relief. Roughly 1.3 million borrowers have seen $25 billion in student debt forgiveness.
And as the gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Jayapal, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was very instructive, that last 5 minutes. Let me just take on several points. The other side gives money out too. Let's be really clear. That's the $2 trillion tax cut that Donald Trump passed with Republican votes. And that is a tax cut that went to the top 10% of the country. And that's if you're generous, it went to the top 10%. So don't